let's stay in Zimbabwe and speak to journalist Hopewell Chin'ono. He was arrested and released on bail last week after being denied bail 3 times. Chin'ono was arrested in July together with Transform Zimbabwe leader Jacob Ngarivhume for inciting violence. Chin'ono joins us now to speak to us about his time behind bars. Hopewell, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. How are you doing? It's been a couple of days since you've been released on bail.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on your program. I'm recovering while at home. I came out of prison with a terrible fever. The prison service could not even give me painkillers. That's how bad the situation is in prison, but I'm recovering well at home.
And how was it for you in prison? How were you treated while you were in custody? What was your experience?
The prison service is a reflection of what has become of our country, broken down. We were living in cells meant for 16 people, and in my cell we were about 44 people. And there was no running water. There's no running water in the prison. There's also a terrible diet. People get fed cornmeal with boiled beans with no cooking oil or anything to come with it. In the evening, they get their supper. It's again cornmeal with boiled cabbages. So the situation is really terrible. I was talking to one of the psychiatrists today and explaining to him what I saw in prison. Last week, just before I was released, a prisoner was killed by another prisoner, and they were psychiatric patients. And the reason why it happened is because that the prison service is failing to provide psychiatric drugs to these patients. That's how bad it comes down to one thing: corruption, the looting of public funds, and the plundering of national resources.
Yeah. What do you think was the purpose of that experience? What message do you think government was actually trying to send out?
I was arrested just after I'd exposed the COVID-19 looting scandal, where high-ranking government officials, including people who are close to the president, were setting up shelf companies and then getting tenders, inflating prices. For instance, a mask worth 68 cents was being sold for $24 US. That's how bad it was. And I was incarcerated after exposing that. So the idea was to instill the fear of God in other journalists, that if you expose corruption and if you involve the president and his family, this is what we'll do to you.
What's your message, Hopewell, to other Zimbabweans that want to speak out, but they are afraid and they fear that they will be treated the same way that you were treated?
To other Zimbabweans, I say that they must be resolute. This is about the future of not just ourselves as individuals, as Hopewell Chin'ono, but the future of our children and grandchildren. This has been happening for the past 20 years, the plunder of national resources, the looting of public funds. And it has gotten to a situation where for the past 3 months, all government hospitals in Zimbabwe are not working, and people are dying in their homes quietly. There is a silent genocide taking place. So it's important for the citizen to stand up for their rights and to make sure that the public funds that are meant to fund public institutions like hospitals are not abused by the ZANU-PF elites.
So one of the things that your arrest did was put a spotlight on, once again, the human rights abuses in Zimbabwe and the crackdown on opponents. And I would like to hope, Hopewell, that wasn't in vain. And I know Pretoria had sent envoys. We've got the ANC arriving last night. And it's another discussion on whether or not they will be able to achieve what they are sent there for. But we've also seen the West speak out against human rights abuses in Zimbabwe. But one may argue we have been here before. What hope do you have of the recent developments that they will bring about change?
The South Africans have to speak to everybody, to all the stakeholders, the opposition parties in Zimbabwe, the civil society, the church, because they are all stakeholders to what's happening. And they've been speaking out against the ruthless rule of Emmerson Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF. But if the South African government or the ANC is sending envoys to Harare to only speak to ZANU-PF, this is then used as a propaganda coup by ZANU-PF to say that the ANC or the South African government is engaging only with us and not anybody else, and that there is no political crisis in Zimbabwe, because that is the line that is being maintained by ZANU-PF, that there is no political crisis. But how can one say so when people are dying in their homes, when there is no medication in hospital, and when the nurses and doctors are not coming to work and they've not been doing so for the past 3 months? There is a huge political crisis in Zimbabwe. It needs all hands on deck. It needs to be resolved. People must...
Is there a sting? All right. Hopewell, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the work that you have done, and do get well there. Hopewell Chin'ono is the journalist that was arrested in Zimbabwe.